intent there, also part of this resource that we're gathering as an organization, is that we'll share this webinar as well as a URL document it's going to appear in your chat window here momentarily. It's a document that we all can share resources, right? So we can all share resources to this document. So long after this webinar is over, we can go back to something that we can reference later. The resource document also has a Q&A feature. So later in the meeting, after we've had a time to get to know one another, we'll have a Q&A feature that you can also be posting questions there. So I don't see it quite yet, but the chat window, if you mouse over the bottom of the screen, there's a chat window that pops up. Oh, there it is. And so there is the resource doc that we can all be contributing to and all be receiving from. All right, and that's part of this. That's part of the idea, is that we're a community of music educators, and that from Arcata down to Oxnard, we can have a place to come to, so that we can look at these tools and engage with them at a later time. All right, so I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I'm going to bring you back to, let's see here, we're going to go. Great. All right, let's see here. So we're back at the title slide here, and so give me 1 second. I'm going to bring you all into. There we go. So like most of us, thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to also welcome President-elect Armelin Delao. She is also on this webinar. So one of the opportunities we have here today is that we can demonstrate technology that you can use with your students in distance remote learning, ways that it will not always work the first time, and ways that and the ways that you can troubleshoot, as it were. So right now, what I'm doing, and hopefully this interface, this Zoom call, is an opportunity for you, if you haven't already, is an opportunity for you to learn more about the functionality of Zoom. Yeah, so what I'm going to do here in a second, as soon as that behaves with me, is that I'm going to share with you a slide. Let's see here. There we go. All right. Where are we going with that? Right. Be right there with you. Okay. Let's see. 1 second.
Dr. B, what's up, Rupert?
All right. So, do you all see a do you see a slide that says Netiquette? Just a simple nod will do. Okay, great. Right, and that's one way you can that's one way you can check with your students. So we obviously know this. The microphones are muted so that this doesn't get that terribly crazy here in the beginning. Like I said, there's a list of resources that is available now in the chat window. Please feel free to engage with that document. You can go ahead and start posting questions there. Our innovations representative for CMEA, Danielle Collins, she is here, and she is actively monitoring this resource doc that's been shared with you in the chat window. And so she's organizing questions into themes and threads so that we can address those. We can address those a little bit later, as well as taking all of your ideas for technology engagement and music learning and distance remote learning. She's also taking those. So I'm sure that we all have something that has been useful to us that we'd like to share to the broader community. So next, we had promised that this is going to be an opportunity for us to hear from folks across the state. So the last I checked in our account here is that we have quite a few participants. So there's a very cool feature in Zoom. It allows you to use breakout rooms. And so, pardon me if you've already used this functionality. And so what we'll do here in a minute is that we will split our group together here apart, and we'll go to breakout rooms where we can basically connect with colleagues and share, well, how's it been going? What are your plans? What are your plans to move forward? How are you engaging students in this particular time? How is this impacting your program, the lives of our colleagues, the lives of your students, right? And so all that I ask is that when we do break out into these breakout rooms, go ahead and elect a facilitator that will take down some main ideas and some themes that when we come back to this main room, we can come back and we can share out kind of what was talked about and disseminated in the breakout rooms. So no worries, you don't have to do anything for the breakout room. We have our own CMEA exec board administrative assistant, Trish Adams, who's going to be handling breaking us out into these rooms. So you just have to stand by and you'll see a smaller group of people in a second. So I'm going to hop off here. I'm going to stop sharing my thing here. And we're going to hear from some other folks in a second. There we go. All right, great. Harry, I'm back. Okay, good. Great. So we're at a point now that I'd like to go ahead and hand off this webinar to our president, Mr. John Byrne.
Thank you, Chad. And can you all hear me? Okay, great. I mean, it goes without saying that we are in an unprecedented time right now. When festivals were canceled, but school was still in session, my focus was on how to give the students some sort of culminating performance, whether it was asking admin to let us do a concert with no audience and live stream it, which we did on March 6th, or use Facebook Live to stream a performance run through, which we did on March 11th, or using FaceTime to bring in one of the adjudicators from a canceled festival, which I also did on March 11th. Each time I use technology, I learn how to do it better next time. For our live streamed concert on March 6th, we were fortunate to be in a church that was set up with multiple cameras and professional quality microphones. But when we did an impromptu Facebook Live run through of our festival set in the band room, I couldn't get the whole orchestra in the picture. The mic was just my phone, it's all I had. And Facebook muted one of the pieces due to copyright concerns. So, I mean, when we use FaceTime, and then when we used FaceTime to have a judge listen to us and give us a clinic, the judge told us that because of the poor quality microphone on my laptop, he couldn't evaluate tone or balance when we played forte or above. But at least we did those things, each of which were positive experiences for my students. Now, with schools closed here in Cupertino, the conversation moves towards online lessons because ensemble rehearsals are not possible for the next several weeks at least. Nothing can or should ever replace ensembles where groups of students make music together. As one person stated, we shouldn't do too good a job at distance learning. We don't want distance learning to ever replace the experiences of students making music together as part of their school day. With that said, we do not want students, we do want students to keep practicing their instruments at home during this time. We do want students to continue learning music during this time. So, I mean, we all come to technology from different levels of comfort and understanding, and we all have different expectations, and for either self-imposed or imposed upon us from our district schools regarding how much we should or can do with our students during this time. So, I mean, I see the purpose of this webinar as not to tell you what you should do, but just to let you know there are many options and resources of what you could do. My advice is to not wait until you fully understand something to try it. Every time you try something, you'll learn ways of improving it for next time. But you don't know what you don't know until you choose a resource that looks doable for you and give it a try. So I really see this, this webinar as an opportunity for people to share resources and to share ideas, and then for each of us to decide what we're comfortable with. And even, I guess what I'm saying is that even if you don't feel all that comfortable, go ahead and try it. Kids will understand, kids can help you, and doing something, you know, is better than doing nothing. So that's just sort of I wanted to give you an example of a 2-minute share out, which is the kind of thing we're about to start doing in our groups. I'll send it back over to Chad. And thank you, Chad, for putting this together. I've got a lot of comments already from people praising CMEA for trying to do something to help us through this unprecedented time.
Thank you. Thanks, John. I can't take all the credit. There's so many hands that are on deck working for the organization to make this possible. And who knows, this might be a springboard to consider regional webinars for the next foreseeable future. So thank you very much. But again, I think we all find ourselves in this together, and it was important for us to consider how we might bring folks, just echoing what John said, bring folks to find something that, because right now we all know that the social media, the groups that have been formed, and we are just saturated with resources. They're all very wonderful, but it's just overwhelming. And I personally can't. I mean, I'm the tech rep, and it's hard for me to keep up with all the amazingness that people are sharing and posting and trying. So part of this too is to talk and communicate with colleagues about something that might specifically fit your needs and your students' needs. You know, for all the applications that I enjoy working with, that might not be the case for my colleague in the next CMEA section down the highway, right? And so I think there is a collective brain trust in the organization, as evident by all of you attending this webinar. And let's not forget, for those of you that couldn't make it tonight and are watching at a later time, right? We want to include you into this conversation. The resource doc is always a repository of ideas that is living. It's a living document. I wanted to ask, or I wanted to hand it off to our Vice President, Ann Fennell. I don't know, Ann, would you like to add anything there?
No, I think you've covered all. The one thing I want to be sure of, it's really up to your district policy as to what you do during this time. The reality is that for access and equity, and there are some students that don't have any internet, and so we cannot assign assignments to these students. So you cannot assign work and whatnot. So we have to really be careful what we're doing and what we're providing for students. Is it enrichment? If it's going to be graded, you have to be very clear that everyone has the same opportunity to access this information, these documents. So please look at your district for that information, and understand that even if they might have internet, some of these students are now becoming the mothers and fathers of their brothers and sisters, some of the older ones, and they're taking care of families that moms and dads are no longer. I've seen that happen too. So more than content, I almost want to say the most important thing, that how are the individuals adjusting? How are you doing as a person? How are the people that you're connecting with doing? Because this is definitely different times for everyone. So that personal relationship is number one. And then number two, you need to get taught, and what can you release that doesn't have to be taught? To what depth and breadth are you going to in your content? Really look at that wisely.
Thank you, Anne. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Whew. Okay, so I think we're at the portion of the meeting where we're going to break off into rooms so that you all have an opportunity to speak. I think there's a and we're going to give ample time for this. I think we're going to give about 15, actually looking at the time, about 15, 20 minutes for folks to have a chance to share and talk. One of the guidelines that we use just a few weeks ago at CASMIC, when the entire board met for the entire state, Scott Hedgecock was there with a timer and made sure that everyone's voice had an opportunity to be heard. Maybe some of you that are in here and you have your it's totally okay. Maybe you want to listen. It's fine. And so however you feel comfortable sharing and meeting folks across the state is up to you. So, okay, so Trish is going to separate us out into what Zoom calls breakout rooms. And we're going to go ahead and wait here for a second. And what we'll do is we'll allow enough time. Oh, also, so when you're in a room, can someone, if there's not someone that we've already designated as a facilitator, if you find yourself in a room, and just maybe elect yourself or volunteer to take some notes, and so that we can share back with the larger group what other people were talking about in the other rooms. Okay, so Trish is listening, and Trish, here's the sign. Go ahead.
Got it.
I'm waiting for us all to reappear in these spaces.
Right.
Almost there.
Thank you, Trish.
And if you see in the chat room, Danielle's posted the links if you've not clicked on chat down below.
Food for thought. This is how long it takes to create the breakout rooms for 65 people.
Right. Maybe give them a reflective comment or question for them to have answered by the time the rooms break out. If it's your classroom. Yeah. The cool thing is Zoom is now open for teachers. So if you've not created your Zoom account this morning, it's worth it. Okay, I'm breaking out here. Whoops, it blipped out. I just got a notification and it left that fast.
I
Didn't
saw
even get
that.
to click it.
Yeah,
I did maybe get to click it?
How do I fix that, Chad?
Oh, just go ahead and send it again.
Yes.
I already see some.
Go on Zoom and create your account. Mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be an issue. I may have to do this again.
I'm wondering until that time, I'm wondering if we can, if they have a question, they can post it on the chat side And then someone can choose to answer or jump in between while we're waiting.
All participants, breakout rooms.
How to handle no internet access. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I can enter the fray a little bit on this. I've spent some time also running around educational technology conferences, and there are a couple of companies out there that actually provide internet access for those that don't have internet access. And so there's a company. I'm just going to type it. I'm going to type it in the chat window, or maybe someone can hear in a minute. It's called Khajiit. Khajiit, and it sounds as goofy as it writes as goofy as it sounds. It's Kajeet. And I see a bunch of others ones coming here. So Khajiit, working with your school district, will issue you a little device that students can take home. Basically, they plug in, and it becomes a mobile hotspot in their home. What's really great about that is that they also have sort of back-end packages that work with your school's domain accounts, your Google accounts, in terms of device monitoring and things like that. So definitely check out Khajiit. I also see a couple of other things. Spectrum is offering for free. I also know, here, I'll stop. Does anyone want to?
Yeah, I was going to say, I reset it so that it's automatically going to send people to their rooms, I think.
Okay.
So let's try it again.
Okay.
Hey there, you guys. Can you guys hear me? I can't see anybody's picture. There's like 4 people here.
Hi, this is Trish Adams. I put you in a breakout room, and I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure why you haven't joined it.
Yeah, got me.
Uh,
It had me in there for a little bit and it kicked me back to here. So this is the main room, I guess, huh?
This is the main room.
It's all good. I'll just hang tight, see what happens.
It looks like
Oh, I think it kicked me back.
okay.
Nope, I'm still here.
I think there might be something you can click to join your room. It says not joined, but I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. Down here at the bottom, breakout rooms. I'll check it out. Here, I'll mute
Okay, try that. Hi, Drew. Can you hear me? Hi, Kristen. Can you hear me? Hi, Kristen. Hello? Hi, Kristen. Can you hear me? There. Now she's in a room.
All right. We can all give a virtual hand. We can give a virtual applause for our Zoom coordinator, Trish Adams. She's just handling like a pro this afternoon. Hopefully she heard us. Let's see. Does one of the breakout rooms want to go ahead and share with the larger group? Just some highlights.
I can go real quick. So we were group 4. We talked about how Chrome Music Lab is really a great resource for elementary kids. We had a little sharing of frustrations about guidance or the lack thereof and the constant changing guidance from our district as to what we're supposed to do or not supposed to do, or when we're supposed to do something or not supposed to do something. So we commiserated on that. For music theory, musictheory.net is a website worth looking at. Google Classroom it can be used for a lot of things, including students uploading videos and audio recordings if you want to have students do that or make that available for students. CMEA is going to do a virtual solo ensemble festival. And so we're really excited about that. It's something to motivate students to practice and to offer them something. And then we talked about videos that we share, one of which is the Keeping Score series that Michael Tilson Thomas did with San Francisco Symphony. So yeah, that was a very short what we talked about.
Thanks, John.
Awesome. This is Anne. Very similar things. We also list like Smart Flight or Smart Music Note Flight and Sight Reading Factory that have free accounts right now, as well as Comcast and Spectrum are doing free Wi-Fi. That the students can access this if they're able. And I do want to reiterate that just make sure that you've got protocol in your district that discusses and understands that students are on the internet. Most of those have signed off prior to school starting that your student may use the internet. Just confirm that that's happened. Of course, all the resources from the Metropolitan Opera and the free streaming and the Philharmonic free concerts. Flipped classroom, and that students, even younger kids, put some topics on a board and let them pick what topic, and they can create Google Slides and teach the topic to anyone. that we have two music educators, students that are aspiring music educators in college right now in the middle of their field work, and how to look at conductors and how to spend this time getting to know themselves as a conductor in front of the mirror and learn how to do that art form. Video practice, support students in becoming musicians and connecting with them as individuals and what kind of music they like. Another topic is supporting English language learners through this and differentiate on Google Classroom or in other ways. Using Google Translate to support the students so they can record things, and then maybe you co-write things with them in Google Classroom to support as well. But I think that covers a lot of it. We are brainstorming an idea for one person in particular who's going to they have one-on-one Chromebooks, and they need their assignments by next week. And so this next week, they're all picking up Chromebooks, and she's feverishly writing lesson plans. So I think Google Classroom's a savior for so many of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne.
Yeah.
I'll go. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Collins. I'm the innovations rep for CMEA. Let me know if I have connectivity issues. We, in breakout room 3, spoke about a couple things. We spoke about the lack of access if we have students that don't have access, and what music education looks like for those students versus some in the same classroom who might have access. A couple of our colleagues from Southern California are creating large projects that could go through the end of the year if we needed to, that give students the option of what sort of access they can utilize. So Chrome Music Lab was a discussion, but we also talked about, what on paper would that be? Would they be doing maybe some songwriting offline if they didn't have access to internet? Smart music projects versus recording in GarageBand. And we also talked about if it's possible to try to collect data from your students to get an understanding of what kind of access they do have. Do you have internet at home? Do you have, what kind of computer do you have at home? Are you working from your phone? Just getting a little bit of information will really help you sort of build those lessons and create some options for students who have diverse access. We also talked about partner assignments as a possibility, and the need for getting students to communicate and collaborate with each other, even if it's in a digital workspace. Kind of like as we are right now, I feel refreshed by having all these music teachers in my bedroom with me right now, as weird as that sounds. But and the kids are going to need that too. And so if they want, maybe giving them the option of doing some partner assignments, and that could maybe thread the seam of lack of access for some of those students as well. We talked about looking at those standards and going back to your goals. If you were in the classroom, what would you be doing? What would you want your students to get out of this week and next week? Okay, how close can we get those students to those goals just in the internet world, or listening to music that's on their radio or on their television or out, something like that. And finally, we talked about chamber groups and final projects, really starting to think about what sort of takeaways we could give the kids at the end of the year. Maybe they're working on something that in hopes of being together, we could collaborate, or maybe they're sending recordings to you and you could put them together in a digital audio workspace so that they have something to walk away from the school year with. So that's, for the most part, what we talked about, and all of those notes are under breakout room 3 discussion notes.
Cool, thank you. So I think I'm the one that's left for my breakout room. I think so. Is there one more?
And Armelin had a breakout room as well.
Oh, great. Hey, Armelin.
Hey, we talked a lot about the fact that some of our counties don't have access to internet. So what other things we could do. We talked a little bit about what resources are out there. Again, the same thing with Spectrum and Comcast or things like that. We talked a lot, something called jammer.net. Someone shared that in the chat. So I don't know if that just is in our chat or if that's someone else's chat, where you can actually play with each other, play in time with each other. So the other thing is just, the idea of with little ones, having them, checking in with them. Some people were talking about the need to check in with the students once a week, that their districts are expecting them to do that. And so what would that look like? Maybe just sharing what they've been practicing, the teacher sharing what they've been working on, those kinds of things. Anybody else from my group? I don't know if you want to say anything else.
I mentioned like maybe assigning students some pop songs, and just like whatever their favorite pop song is right now, try to learn a couple measures of the melody of that. Because a lot of my students have no access to internet at all. And since I am in the second year of building the program, a lot of them aren't very confident in their playing. So there was that. And I think someone else mentioned like having the younger or the older siblings teach their younger siblings lullabies, or like jump rope games, or like the little songs where you clap and do all that kind of stuff. And then I think the last thing I mentioned was I have a lot of siblings that are in my program. So I'm just going to say, you know, you and your siblings create your own little band and play songs together. But that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And this is great, actually. I think this is wonderful to hear folks from across the state in a way that's really kind of meaningful in this situation. I know I feel stressed. I think stressed and confused, and our kids are, the anxiety is elevated. And I working with my teachers here in the last few days, trying to get folks caught up on Google Classroom in a 20-minute, 30-minute training session. I think one of the things that I've been suggesting is that we approach this with a good tablespoon of empathy throughout this process for everyone involved. It's new, it's uncharted territory for many of us, and certainly as well as our students. And so just really being mindful in that way sets a great message and creates a really great vibe for all of us in music education. So our group had very much similar themes. I think we have an obligation, if I can share the word obligation. We are all concerned as an organization about accessibility in terms of if we're facing a situation that requires us to engage in distant remote learning, what sorts of infrastructure are being made available so that we have a situation that is accessible for all, right? So we like to use the word all. That's a theme that I keep hearing over and over. So I think that's very important to us. Kind of the conversation that came out of sort of the what do we do in lieu of the ensemble, the experience, the sense of being with one another, making music together. And one of the things that emerged from our group is that it's out of the situation that we find ourselves in. It's a really great opportunity for us to engage in aspects of music making that we might not have always the time to address, right? We might be so focused on the festival preparation, and I certainly know this as an ensemble director. Right after the festival comes a concert, and there's certainly tours to contend with for some of us. But it might be a wonderful opportunity to really look at the standards across the standards document, right? And for us to engage in music that might not be of the band, orchestra, choir tradition. We might find musics of cultures and around the world that might be that are certainly attainable at this very time. We might use software to work on to create music that doesn't rely on a notational system, right? And that could be really engaging And certainly for students that feel, as is very clear by the adults here, the teachers, students that feel displaced because of their ensemble becoming unraveled, right? At the same time, there's an opportunity to have meaningful engagement in music making using some of these tools that some of the software titles, they're opening up, like Note Flight Learn, right? Soundtrap, and there's a whole list that's going on our doc that I just took a look at. A lot of these folks are just completely removing price tags, and they understand this, they are empathetic with what we're going through. And it's really a great opportunity to, like, you know, this, I've heard this Chad guy talk about Note Flight and I just haven't had the time. Well, here's the time. Here's the time. The analogy I like to use for all of the cloud-based software titles, it's like the Google of, and you fill in the blanks. It's like the Note Flight is the notational version of Google Docs. You can share, you can collaborate, you can work together, you can send, you can receive. And most importantly, with these software titles, they all come with resources about how to use it with your students. You don't feel like the muse. You open up a Note Flight score and you open up Note Flight and you have a blank score looking at you and you don't know what to do. There's so many resources you could use right out of the box. I think, Anne, go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to interject that it's absolutely about all the other standards as well. It's like, what opportunity we have our students to speak about what they're playing and hearing, act with their emotions, connect to what they've learned and what they hear, or what they're going to teach their mom and dad, teach their brother and sister how to play the instrument with, you know, sтерosol in between, whatever that is. But I'm thinking that, thinking of all those standards, and speaking of standards, you know, get on the California State Framework and maybe submit a review from the framework.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. I'd like to thanks everyone, and there's still some time left to engage in a Q&A session. We have questions that have been posted on our doc, and we'd like to go ahead and open that up at this point. So let's see here, Danielle, how might we do that?
Give me one moment here. I think in the breakout rooms, we talked a lot about internet and no internet and how we're handling that. And so I think we can move on from that question. Do you want to talk about protecting student data and legal considerations with various platforms?
Oh, so that actually did come in the group, and yeah, I'd be happy to, and certainly I am not the end all be all to knowing all of this. That's why we created this webinar. So I'll share my thoughts, and for those of my colleagues that have something to add that I might not be aware of, please. And so we did have a conversation about when we were talking about Note Flight, and the question was, is that something that I can deploy and because my district or my school is not really giving me clear direction on the direction I should take, right? And so so the answer to that is many of these cloud-based, web-based software applications, they leverage the school's for the most part Google accounts and the Google domain. And they're also starting to leverage the Microsoft domains as well. And so what that means is that those software, they're working in tandem with an educational product that sandboxes your students for SIPA and COPA regulations, right? So what I mean by sandbox is that there's nothing coming in and there's nothing going out. This is all student activity in a digital world. Right, and so you're usually going to want to have you want to reach out as if they're not already saturated with enough work to do right now. You want to reach out to your folks, your IT department. If your sites are asking you to put together something that is for distance learning, then your response is, I really want to try Note Flight. We deploy it through our Google accounts. How can you help me achieve this? One of our teachers in our breakout room, although the students didn't get materials, they are a one-to-one school, and they had their devices, and they took their devices home. And so that's something you're going to want to deploy through your district and through your school to maintain that SIPA COPA regulations for children under the age of 18. So I had a comment come in to me from one of the organizers. I wanted to briefly just kind of throw a couple of fancy, sophisticated terms out at the group, and just kind of define them. So right now, and let me go ahead and let's see. Let me go ahead and share one more time to see if I can actually do that. Oh, good. I can do that. And you should see a screen. You should see a screen that says synchronous learning. Is that good? Great. And so we want to talk about kind of filter down this idea of synchronous and asynchronous, right? So synchronous learning is an idea of what we're engaging with right now, right? It's in real time. It's happening as the clock is moving. And we're participating as the second hand is moving across the clock. What's beneficial about how we set the meeting up is that for those people that could not be here, they will engage in this webinar in an asynchronous way, right? And so we are going to take the webinar, it's being recorded. We're then going to share this on our social media as well as our website so that people can engage in the material. They can pause and rewind. They can engage in the material on their own time, right? And so part of the organizers of our event here, it was important for us to have as many learning modalities embedded into this experience so that it provides all of us some ideas about how to engage our students in this brave new world. Right, so we're kind of, as we're all teachers, and we're kind of demonstrating as educators what we might use with not only our colleagues but in our students. And so again, I have kind of a very, very general list here of some music application folks. I spoke about NoteFlight. Like I said at the beginning, there is just a giant list of resources that are available, and we're trying to curate them for you here. And they're also out online in the Facebook groups that have populated in the last week. So there are all of these applications. You have the ability to use synchronous and asynchronous learning styles with your students. I forget the name of the Facebook group, and I hope that we've put it in our resources. And you might help me with the name of the Facebook group. It's the Online Learning Community.
Oh, that Elise started? Yeah.
Yeah, just a brilliant online learning community. That
let me pull it up right now.
Thank you. That 4 days ago, when I first heard about it, it was 4 days ago, it was about cresting at about 2,000. I think this afternoon I saw it at about 14,000 members. That's oh, thank you. Thanks, Danielle. Danielle put the title up. Yeah. So that's a great resource. It's kind of a lot, but you know what people are doing is they're posting Google Docs like we are. And again, you can go decide what is going to be best, what's going to be best for your situation. I'm a NoteFlight person, but there's this guy I met at Casbic, and he runs theshed.com, and he's doing amazing work. He makes all of these videos that have all this interactivity with it. And so some of the colleagues I've been talking with this afternoon before our webinar, we're all kind of geeking out at some of these things, and we're actually doing it, and we're having fun with Soundtrap and making remixes of Bach and things like that. And so we're kind of having fun so that we can prepare that fun and deliver with the students. Yeah, so
Hey,
let's see
Chad,
here.
we've got some more questions here. If
Thank you,
want.
Danielle. Thank you.
How are you communicating with students who do not have internet access? How do we inform students there are assignments?
I have a very generic answer, but I would love for someone in the community who's in that specific situation share with the group.
I'm sorry, was someone else going to go ahead?
All yours.
So what our district did is we sent out phone dialers, and we put messages on our webpage about when students should be showing up to pick up their work. And they set a certain date, and I believe it's Wednesday from 1 to 3, and it'll allow students to come in, pick up any work, hard copies, and if the students do not show up, then administration is taking it upon themselves to hand deliver it to those students' houses.
Wow.
I have a, oh, sorry, Ann, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking also, I always use Remind, but if you've not done that, you could send out a new Remind class via email to all the parents and get all of your classes on a Remind app, which is worth it.
Mm-hmm. We have, sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear me. Ann froze on me. Okay, we have Facebook groups for our parents because the parents still use Facebook. And so we've invited all of our parents to join a Facebook group. I use an app called Slack with my students, and that enables us to do like, it's kind of like Discord. The kids will know Discord. But Slack is basically a communication tool for project companies. And I can communicate with the students on my phone through this app. Everything is documented, and I can see everything that's posted, and I don't have any of their phone numbers. So it's a way that we can communicate quickly via phone. I know a lot of teachers that use GroupMe. I might yield to Chad or Armelin or John on some of the legalities of these to make sure that they're okay. But I've been using GroupMe with my students for like 10 years. And that's a nice way of checking in with the kids too. It's a very easy app just to communicate with them on a regular basis. Because a lot of times if we can communicate with them, we can pick up the ones who've fallen off. You know, hey, where's so-and-so? Can somebody reach out to them, and that kind of thing, and make sure that they know what's going on.
Did you mention remind.com?
Yes.
Remind app is another way of using that, and you can have parents add to that. I know a lot of schools have added those remind codes onto their homepage of their websites. You could probably ask the librarians or the people who manage the websites to put that on there for them, or even send a letter home. I mean, we haven't talked about this yet, but I'm sure administrations are all going to be asking the same thing. How do we get stuff from the students, and how do we get info to them? I know, Chad, another question that came up, there's another pertinent question if we want to move on, but if you have anything else to add with that.
I just wanted to say what's very cool about this community right now is right as Danielle was talking, if you all look at the chat, everyone is contributing some answers in the chat. And so, you know, people are answering questions about Remind and Slack and talking about some numbers and caps and things like that. So that's what's very cool. We can be talking and you can be listening. Also check into the chat because there's a lot of activity going on there. Yeah, so yeah, let's go to the next question. We have like about 7-8 more minutes left.
Okay.
So go ahead.
This one's a tough one. If we are out for the rest of the year, how do we collect instruments and devices from students?
Anyone? And
well,
please,
I have a quick answer for this. My husband works in the industry, so I'm cheating. I know the answer. So there could be a music store pickup opportunity where you could work with a local music store and ask them to try to pick up some of those instruments if they are rented by the music store. You can ask them to be responsible for those. There might be, likewise, an opportunity for a district employee with a district vehicle to drive to some neighborhoods in towards the end of the year to be able to pick those up.
Yeah.
I would just also think that if that is the case, because of textbooks or other sources or Chromebooks or all the other things that the students have at home, districts will provide an opportunity for things to be brought in. Whether that's, you know, like one place where everything comes in, or whether or not they have a district truck or something that goes to different schools and collects things. They're going to have to, the districts are going to have to provide something in that case. I don't see that they would not, just because there are a lot of districts that have loaned Chromebooks and other costly devices out for kids, and the instruments would be right within that.
And school
So,
uniforms as well.
yeah,
Uniforms, materials.
this is uncharted territory. So there's going to be a lot of new protocols and things put in place that districts will
I
need
think
to.
the district administration is also interested in making sure they get everything back, and will probably.
A lot of different things. Yeah.
Okay, we've got one more question that we haven't answered. A lot of the answers to these questions are pretty straightforward, and so they're on the document. Go ahead and read them. There's a copyright webinar tomorrow to address any copyright concerns.
Absolutely.
CMEA will give info about that meeting. But we haven't yet spoken as a group about the health and the well-being of all of these incredibly hard worker educators who are now stuck at home. So Chad, Anne, if Anne is here, Armelin, John, what do you recommend to these music educators who now have to fill this giant, huge amount of time as a void to survive? Because myself, I ran Pulse Percussion, and Pulse Percussion is now not in service. And so that was my labor of love, and I get to stare at another 120 kids and go, yeah, we're not doing anything either. And so now I'm trying to find fulfillment.
I mean, when this first started happening, I thought, well, I guess I'm gonna have a lot of free time. I'm still waiting because the past couple of weeks it's been so much work dealing with the cancellations and what we're talking about here. But it's a lot easier said than done, but maybe I'll read a book. Maybe I'll practice my horn, So I'm actually looking forward to practicing my trumpet a lot over the next weeks, and spend time with your loved ones. A lot of people always ask me, how do you keep a good life balance? And I don't have a good answer. I don't think I do. So now I'm kind of forced to a little bit. So
we have a hand raise. It's just labeled iPhone. So go ahead, iPhone. I see your hand. Or was that a mistake?
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
I'm part of Santa Clara County. Our schools were closed last Friday. And the generic email, because I think our district was not expecting to be closed as so suddenly, the generic email is that we cannot expect that students are going to do assignments or grade them, but we have to, quote, do our job daily as best that we can, which sounds to me really impossible. So my question actually is regarding this platform. An idea that came to me is like, well, how about using Zoom to check in if possible? Can you hear me? Hello?
Oh yeah, we got you.
Yeah. Yep. How about using Zoom to, maybe like post in the Google Classroom or send an email to parents. I will be doing a demonstration for our class, 5-minute check-in or something on how to work on this piece. And then, but my question is that students can, I don't know if it's legal with with the students. I don't know if it's legal with the district. I don't know if, if the students decide to, post inappropriate things in the chat, how to manage that. There's just so many unknowns, and if that's a, plausible idea. I've never used Flipgrid. Another teacher is using Flipgrid, and I have no idea how to use that platform and if that will work. But it seems like you'd have to enter every single student's email, which is a lot of work.
Oh,
I don't.
yes.
So, yeah. What are some suggestions at this
Yeah.
point?
Actually, really quick on the Flipgrid. It actually talks to your Google account and it auto enrolls for you. It's actually really nice. Flipgrid is one of those things that integrates with Google and to my understanding, Microsoft. You mentioned something about using Zoom, and so in our district, we have set up. First of all, the students have a tech use and responsibility policy, right? And so part of our preparation for this distance remote learning was addressing that again. I was in a classroom today and I basically said, the document that you and your family signed also exists in the digital world that we're going to be engaging in for the next foreseeable future. Zoom is nice. Zoom, there's benefits to both Zoom and Google Hangouts. I'll just go to Google Hangouts real quick. Google Hangouts integrates right with their Google accounts. It's very pour, stir, and serve. Zoom has the functionality, as you've all experienced, where you can mute everyone. So you have a little more functional controls. For these accounts, the educational accounts, and I could be wrong, we're using a professional grade account where you can break off into those rooms and you can do things. The accounts that teachers are using with their students to check in and do some sort of informal engagement, those features, I think you can set them too. They're not enabled, right? And so the idea that you bring up about, is this safe? Is this, because I manage Google domains at 2 schools. And so Hangouts is something that students can initiate. But at the same time, data retention policies on all Google products, I set mine to never delete. And so if there was an instance where they were using technology inappropriately, that your Google admin can very quickly go and research that and bring that to light. Zoom does not do that, but at the same time, you're using Zoom synchronously, right? And it's real time. It's you can record it, but everyone's in the same place. So it really is specific to your needs. I have a school that I have a handful of teachers using Hangouts. I have a handful of teachers using Zoom, and it seemed a little crazy to me at first, but I think in light of how fast this changes and moves, my fallback position was, great. What's going to work for you? Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, thanks. Those are a good ideas. Thank you.
Of course. We are at our time. John, would you like to say anything in closing?
Thank you. Thank you to the CMEA board and Chad. When Chad called me Tuesday morning when I was still teaching and still in that framework of, well, we can do something, and my things have changed so much, and we're in uncharted territory, but it's really nice to get together to see other music teachers with shared concerns and desires and hopes, and know that we're going to do what we can to keep our kids learning music in whatever way they can. So thank you again.
Anne, would you like to say something?
I just saw that NAM Foundation put an email out during this webinar, and they're doing like an hour-long, 2-hour-long how to teach online session for music education, 9 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. So go to namfoundation.org for the webinar.
Thank you, Anne.
And they'll have I know they're lining up a few things, so it should be good.
I just want to say thank you to my colleagues. After I reached out to John, Danielle texted me right as the email went out, said, "How can I help?" And Danielle has been behind the scenes managing all this. John and I have been meeting. Ann and I were talking today about best practices and delivery of this, And so it really does take a village. And that was the intention for this,
And Trish,
experience today.
Trish.
Go ahead.
thank
So,
you, Trish. We love you, Trish.
Yeah. It takes a village. Also on the Zoom side of the logistics, facilitating all of this great technology that Zoom has to offer. Trish has been trying things out on the fly. Applause for our admin assistant. There are going to be lots of questions. I certainly think from our exec board here, there are going to be lots of topics that are going to be raised. I certainly have been thinking about what happens after this. Maybe there's possibilities for regional Zoom calls across our nine regions in the state. Maybe that's something we do in a couple of weeks, maybe less than time than that. But we certainly, it was our intention to bring people together. And just so you know that there is a resource doc that is filled with a bunch of information. This webinar will be posted shortly. Please guide people here if they have the time to listen on a car drive that they can't have anymore. We're more than willing to hear you and to lead the organization through this unprecedented times. So that's it from CMEA. Thanks so much, everyone involved.
Chad, real quick, I will also be able to post the chat, all of the chat that came up over here. It will record it, and I'll add it as another page to Danielle's document. So it'll just be a chat resource.
Thanks so much, Trish. That's all, folks. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you.